to everybody who has joined us in Zoom. You know, I was wondering, we live in such interesting times, right? Imagine the entire live industry has gone digital. And this feels so very surreal. But you know, this wouldn't have been possible without your support, you believing in us, you being there every time we go live. So thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and being here. My name is Litzia Rosario. I'm going to be your host for this session. And you know, I've been in the industry since the last 6 years. And one thing that I have learned from this industry is the show must always go on. Welcome to Future Ready Workshop, brought to you by Event and Entertainment Management Association. This is week 3, and we at EMA believe that the power is with you. And today, joining us is a very power-packed individual, right? He's young, he is the founder, but he loves to be called as the project director. And he's the go-to man when it comes to power distribution in the live space. He is the head projects, Genset Rental and safest temporary power distribution services for events, expos, and weddings, third wave services. And that is Vaibhav Kapoor. Wherever you are, give a round of applause at your home. And joining us to moderate this session is the oh so positive, the very exuberant, the managing director of Team Rustic, Vinod Janardhan.
Thank you, Lincia. Mighty tuned in you are with this great red color. Great start for our week here. Good afternoon people of the world. This is an amazing afternoon. We started just 15 minutes delayed, but I'm just amazed that we already have about 325 people logged in. That's amazing. And just here, imagine I get to check the Facebook. So today we stop and think that sometimes the smallest of things make the biggest difference. Take the COVID-19 virus, a tiny, round, microscopic piece of RNA strand which is wrapped in a thin and fairly vulnerable layer of fat, which has created havoc across the entire globe. It knows no boundaries, and the most effective way to minimize the spread is social isolation. From isolation comes power, and the power to change oneself and then change the terrain. Speaking of power and change, we have amongst us, as you know, a man who has changed and who has powered a change in the event ecosystem. Let us straight away link up ourselves to the mentor and director of a company that works relentlessly through continuous innovation, research, and development. Someone who has set the highest safety and quality standards. People of the world, we bring you Vaibhav Kapoor.
Hi Vinod, how are you? Good to see you as always.
Good to see you too, buddy. Okay, so we are ready here, and we are ready for you to take us right through the basics of power.
Okay, so we'll start. Thank you first of all everybody for joining in. It is, so I'll just wait. Okay. So first of all, thanks everybody for joining. I am Vaibhav, as Vinod mentioned. Thanks a lot, EMA, for giving me this opportunity to present to you on power distribution services. So again, it is a very technical subject. Some things you learn, some things you won't. But if you take something out of the presentation, it will be great. It is a very important aspect because electricity, again, poses a lot of dangers. So try and having a lot of fun with this presentation. If you have questions, definitely Vinod will be taking it, and I'm also available afterwards. So again, I will try to highlight some very bad pictures on site which have been taken. So unsafe way of like power distribution services. So again, you see there is an open box. There is the famous bucket earth. So everything goes wrong with this system. In this slide, if you want, we can just cover the whole of power distribution. We don't need to go ahead with the other slides. So again, loose wires, open ends, bucket earths, loose earthing wires. Again, open panels, 2 bulbs saying that the electricity is on, totally open for anybody to come inside. Person doing area lighting, again, you cannot take a chance with electricity. Changeovers, again, open. It is a serious concern and needs to be addressed. So what is it that usually goes wrong with electricity? Firstly, as I showed you those unprecedented slides, inadequate wiring or undersized wiring. Again, we work with a lot of with generators, we work with house powers. So till the time the wiring is not adequate, so the genset can be of the highest capacity, but the power is being taken from the wires. So if there is inadequate wiring, undersized wiring, it will cause an overheating and possibly fire. Second point, overloads. What are overloads? Again, there is a certain capacity a genset can take. There is a certain capacity a wire can take. If you try to put more load on something, it will overload, and ultimately it also leads up to a. And the most important point, which I always stress, are the ground faults, which also mean the earthing faults. We'll be talking in detail about this in my coming slides. But just to give you a brief, I showed you that bucket earth. It merely acts to give you the whole values and nothing else. Fourth, live parts. Live parts meaning that it is open for all junction box. Anybody can trip, anybody can touch, and it will result in death because you're dealing with 440 volts of electricity. Last point, inappropriate use of temporary wiring. Again, temporary wiring is more susceptible to damage than fixed due to aging. We do a lot of outdoor shows. Most of the time, our wiring is exposed to harsh weather conditions. Let it be rain, let it be sun. Ultimately, after a period of time, if there is a PVC cables, they tend to crack. So aging is a very big factor when it comes to this. So all these points we'll try to solve, that how to overcome all these problems so that we don't face any problems on site. So what are the dangers of dealing with electricity? First and foremost is electrocution. One of the most serious dangers at all times. Second is the electric shock. Sometimes the electric shock is small so that you get away with it. Sometimes it is so strong that you fall back, and it could result in death also. Third one is electric burns. Much of current or hands, wherever you're touching, it will automatically burn. And last are the secondary injury, which can caused by somebody's over a ladder and falls down, and indirect injuries. So these are the major dangers of electricity what we face when we are dealing with 440 volts of electricity. And lastly is definitely in events where things go wrong, there is fire and human loss as well. So top tip, electrical repairs should be carried out only with persons who are qualified and authorized to do so. When I say authorized and qualified, what does that mean? That your genset vendor can be your power distribution vendor only if he's qualified to do so, if he has an electrical contractor license. To give you an example, a lawyer can only be a lawyer if he has a LLB degree. A doctor can only be a doctor if he has an MBBS degree. Same way, the person who will be authorized to do your electrical work should have an electrical contractor license. Electrical contractor license for Delhi, Bombay, every state has its own. Some states allow some other states' electrical license to work. Second thing comes the qualified people. The person who is coming to do the electrical work on site, is he even qualified? Is he a diploma holder, or is he a BTech? Has he even done his engineering that he's coming and doing your electrical work, where the chances we've already spoken about that could be life fatal also. So top tip, electrical licenses should be in place and qualified people should be working on site. So what is safest temporary power distribution? So temporary power distribution is the method to transfer power from one source, that could be your gensets, that could be your house power, to another source using the right safety methods and equipment. Permanent or temporary, the hazards of electricity will be the same if not done with proper measures. So we have to treat temporary power distribution and permanent as the same. If we see in our houses, everything is permanent. We have switches. We have a main electrical board. If you see, there are safety devices over there. Same way in temporary also, there is equipment which is available in the market to do temporary work so that there are no loose connections on site, there is no inadequate wiring, and everything goes in place. So everybody is aware of gensets. Most of the time we are working with a lot of generators on site. So what are generators? Generators are only machines which produce electricity on their own without the need for attachment to the main grid. Most of you must be having questions on gensets, that how to choose the right genset. Definitely the quality of the genset really matters. The maintenance of the generators, again, it comes back to the paperwork. Has the how old is the generator? You can treat generators as it is a machine, same as with your car. If your car is maintained well, if you are getting the services on time, it will perform well. If it is not, then it will not perform well. We come to the types of backups. Everybody is aware of manual backups, automatic transfer switch, and synchronization. Manual, I'll just briefly go through. In a manual changeover, what happens? Your one genset is running on load, the other genset is running idle, which we call as hot backup. If something goes wrong, the main generator, the hot backup takes over from the main genset. In manual changeover, you need human involvement to do so. You need to pass on a message to your genset operator that something has gone wrong. And if he's present on site, if he's there at the genset, that very end, then he will do the manual changeover immediately. It will take around 15 to anywhere about 1 minute to do so. Manual changeover, if you see, they are totally unreliable, they are unsafe, and they are not meant for outdoor use because they are open from all the ends. Most of the time, our changeover are kept outside where the generators are parked. It could rain also, people could cross also. So manual changeover is not suggested. Second type of changeover, which we are also using and which is available in the market for everybody, is the automatic transfer switch. Automatic transfer, meaning that you don't need any human involvement. As soon as your main genset goes off, it automatically shifts to the other generator without any human involvement. Third is the future of gensets. Future in India of gensets. It's already been used in abroad for the past 15 or 20 years. In India, there are companies who are working with synchronization. We are also, as a company, work with synchronized gensets. So what is synchronization? Synchronization is different from manual and automatic because over here, we don't have any hot backup. We don't have any genset which is running idle. So if two gensets are running synchronizing, then automatically they are sharing the load. So no genset is running idle. More the gensets, more the synchronizations, more the backups are created on site, more reliability. In synchronization, there is no delay of power. If something goes wrong, there is no delay you're going to see on site. In automatic transfer switches, there is a delay of minimum 1 second, goes up to, you can set. For live events, we usually set it on 1 second, but that is only on the genset side. On site, it could show, depending on the equipment what you're using, it will show from 3 seconds to anywhere to 7 seconds for systems to go on. So synchronization, automatic transfer switch, one more thing I would like to highlight. You can set it on 0 seconds also, but it is not suggested because when your one genset is running idle and one genset, you pull down the electricity to give a surge of electricity to the hot backup. In case of synchronization, you don't need to do that because they are anyways sharing the load and they will balance the load and give the power without any delay.
Vaibhav, there are a couple of questions that, regarding these generators, and probably I thought if we can quickly talk about.
Okay, so first question I will take, that what is the lifespan of genset in event industry? See,
Yeah.
depending on the maintenance and again the age, gensets could last anywhere from 15 years, also from 5 to 15 years if they are maintained properly. 15 years is a good time also for a genset to run if it is maintained properly.
The other questions are from Arun and Imtiaz. Arun feels that when we patch the generator through the hotel board and we distribute to the hall, neutral always seems to be an issue. Okay,
Yeah.
and this is under the control of the hotel. How do we circumvent it? But at the same time, it's a similar question like the lifespan of the genset. A similar question, what Intia says is typically we think that we are taking a 125 kVA genset or a 250 kVA genset, but it lands up that we get only 50% load that is actually what we get. So how do we circumvent it?
So first of all, the 250 kVA generators, will come to the whole units of power, how does it work and all. But just to give you a broad idea, a 125 kVA genset can give you on 100% output 100 kilowatts. So if you have to convert kVA to kilowatts, you just have to multiply by 0.8 and you'll get the kilowatts. But gensets don't run on 100% capacity. They can run on 90%. So 90 kilowatts is the maximum what you can take it out from a 125 kVA gensets. That again depends on the genset rental company if they allow you to do so. So there are a lot of factors, but a good well-maintained genset can give you 90 kilowatts of power anytime. All the industries, everything, they run on 90% because they don't want a loss. So a genset can take up a load of that.
So you're saying that the genset companies, rental companies,
Yeah.
they normally just give us 50% because they want to.
Because again, depending on their maintenance of the genset, again the shifts price which are decided, the amount of diesel it's going to consume. So again, the whole genset and engines are the same. So I'll just give you an example that you buying a car. When you buy a car, the manufacturer tells you that it gives you 15 average of 15. But what does that mean? That if you run your car on 50 speed, then only it will give you 15 average. If you try to race the car, if you're running on like 80 kilometers per hour, then automatically it will draw more. It will give you less average. So the same case with gensets also. So any rental company can give you 90% of load, depending that the diesel is also consumed at that load also. Yeah.
So back to the sync mode that you trying to tell us. So in the sync method, one is the automated changeover that we talk about for gensets, or the manual. I know the automated gensets typical changeover switch typically takes less than 9 seconds to come up. Sometimes if you're lucky, it's 3 to 4. But in the manual, it's like you said, it depends.
It is human. It is human involvement involved.
Yes, and in an event, this is going to be tough.
Yes.
Yeah, one second could be like probably an hour.
Yes, for definitely a live event, it is. Yeah.
So when you mention that, the question that's there in where most of them have asked probably is that when this happens, will the second generator be able to take that load? Because the pull would be very high.
Yeah.
Will it be able to take it?
In a manual case, when you're shifting, because anyways you have lacked that 10 seconds or 5 seconds, so automatically the surge of electricity has come down. So automatically the hot backup takes. Same in the case of the automatic. We need to cool down the electricity to shift the load to the another load. In synchronization, we don't need to do that because anyways they are doing that function for us. So more the synchronization gensets on site, the more backups you are actually creating on site. So you don't have to worry about all those things. But again, that is the future. It's still available. I have done a lot of projects with synchronization also, and it works wonderfully. There is 100% peace of mind. So that is what I think like is important in like when we're dealing in like live events and all.
Okay. There are several other questions like, how we all come from a non-technical background. How do we actually know whether this guy is giving us the right genset? Is there a checklist? How do we know this guy is the right engineer or no? So, we have several exasperations that are going on.
Again, whenever you're choosing any, let it be your genset rental company, let it be your power distribution company, certifications is the most important thing for any checks. If you're taking a genset also, the manufacturing certificate, if it is from a reputed make, let it be Cummins, let it be Kirloskar, let it be CAT, let it be JCB. These are all reputed makes who makes gensets. So those manufacturing certificates you can take from your genset rental company. How do you know that he's giving you 250 kV or if he's giving you a 125 kV, 180? Again, if you'll go to the genset, on top of the genset, it is written. I'm not talking about outside body, but if you see the inside engine also, there are certain plates which mention that this is the kV of the genset. There is an alternator side, there is a genset side. Again, maintenance records can be checked. See, according to the manufacturer, after every 300 kilometers, kilometers, I'm saying, after every 300 hours, the gensets needs to be serviced. So those maintenance records again can be checked. On site, there are simple checks as a agency or as a production manager, what a person can do. Again, very normal things, air filter, oil filters can be checked. In our car also, we go to the petrol pump, we get our oil checked. Same thing, it is an engine, you check the oils, you check the air filters. If those are fine on site, maybe like 80% problems have been solved. See inside the genset, are there no leakages? The oil is not spilled over in the genset. It is absolutely clean inside. So again, the problems are solved. So everything comes back to maintenances. How do you maintain your equipment?
Right.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting question from our mutual good friend Suresh Madan. He says we have two gensets, and if we sync them together, the loads distributed 50% on each load, that's tuned in. So if you have about 150% connected capacity, and in event of one genset failure, you will still have 100% capacity available. Would that be a right statement?
So whenever we are choosing synchronized gensets, see, again, you have to create one extra backup, because if they are sharing loads, so basically what happens, they become a backup of each other. They become a backup of each other. So everything is, if you have two gensets, so one has to be of 300 kVA, the other also has to be of 300 kVA. If you are having 300 kVA load, then the other genset automatically has to be. So I'll just give you a case where you have 1000 kilowatts. So if I'll say that a good genset, which is giving you 80% capacity, you can put 350 kilowatts. So if you have 4 gensets on site or 5 gensets on it, they are sharing the load of 350, 350, 350. Something goes wrong, that 350 balance goes to the other. So what, as synchronization, what is suggested, that you have a lot of loads which are running on sync. Whenever I am taking the sync option, I am saying that I am putting my whole event on that sync, because everything becomes a backup of each other. I don't need to worry about that what is going to happen to the ACs or what is going to happen to the technicals. I make a groups of gensets on site. The biggest example I will like to say is the NBA games, what we did at NSCI Dome. So over there was a requirement from the American team that the gensets have to run for 4 days continuously without any delay. From 2nd October till 5th October, they told us that no genset will go off, or maybe not genset will go off, that no sound light LED should even go off for a second. So the only option I had was synchronization. So we used to run 12 hours for one genset, switch on the other, parallel it, synchronize it, and then automatically shift the load on that. So that ways we were able to achieve that 4 days of period also. Yeah.
Good. I think this has made some more questions that have just barged in, and I mean, I think I've answered. I think you have answered more than 10, 12 of them together in one of them. But let me also take up these. There are other issues that people face. Is wiring creates an issue, but I know you're going to take that up a little ahead. There are questions on earthing. I know you're going to take that also a little up ahead. But the important factor that people feel is how far can we go, A. And then I have a friend, Sandeep, who's asking me that, with so many automated changeovers in gensets, I mean, can we really afford to put so many gensets, or is there actually space to put so many gensets? That becomes a crucial issue for us.
See if you're going with synchronization, go for a bigger capacity. Go for a bigger capacity. Don't go for sync anyways don't come below 250 kVA. So you can't sync the gensets. There are manufacturers who are trying to do that, trying to achieve maybe 180 kVA of genset, but not below that. So if you're with sync, if it becomes on wheels, first of all, in India, we don't have on wheel sync gensets. There are only few companies who are doing synchronization right now. When it becomes on wheels and when it becomes 250 kVAs, so we can have maybe 2 or 3, maybe the 125 kVAs will get eliminated and only 250 kVAs will be used.
So you're saying
there will be one more question which, yeah. So
so
there will be one more question which I think everybody must be having. That can be, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Please go ahead, Vinod.
Yeah, go ahead.
So again, one question everybody must be having, that can we put sound, light, LED on those synchronization? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We have done that. With synchronization, again, if you're everything is proper. Okay, I think I am having unstable. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah. You just went off for a minute, but I think you can repeat that. Most of us got that. Sound, light, and AV, they can all be put together.
They can again all be come on, like all if you are running on synchronization. Again, it all depends on the equipment. It depends on the technical equipment also, if it is new or if it is old. If the new equipment is being used, all over the world, everybody is using synchronization. Your sound, light, LED can come on one source of power. The biggest example is Delhi. From September till March, the gensets are banned in Delhi. We work on house power, maybe of a hotel, maybe of from the grid. Everything is on one power source. So when we are forced to use one power source, then we are putting sound, light, LED. In a normal case scenario on the genset also, if you're giving proper earthing, if you maintaining your equipment properly, if on the end user also the technical equipment is absolutely new or maintained properly, there is no problem of humming sounds and all that. We've already tried. And again, with NBA games, with U2 concert where the gensets were called from abroad, everything was running on one gensets. Yeah.
So how long does a generator work, meaning non-stop? Question
non-stop. See, non-stop. Okay, go on with your questions. I'll answer.
And the question B would be, how do you know this? You're saying if a generator is 3 years or 5 years or 7 years old, that's it. That's the shelf life.
No. A shelf life for a genset could be from 5 years to 15 years also. There is no problem. Again, everything comes back to the maintenance of the gensets. Everything comes back. If it is maintained properly, you use the machine. It is an engine. It can last you for like good 10 to 15 years also. That's not a problem.
Okay, so then I think the question then would be about how long can we run the generator for an event non-stop?
Non-stop, again, like if I'll take my example, I've run a generator for like maybe 3 days continuously also.
Single generator running.
Again, when we start the generator, if we know that the generator has to run for 3 or 4 days, automatically we start with the maintenance. We check all the parameters. Is the radiator water fine? Is the engine oil okay? Are the air filters new? So we change everything so that it becomes again good to go.
Okay. Technical questions, but I think can be taken up a little later. People want to talk about planning the generator and the genset plan, but I think you're going to
we'll come to all those things.
Yeah, if you come back again on your screen share, then probably we can take it.
Okay, so types of backups again.
Come back up again. The screen has to come back again.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. My bad.
It's okay. Share screen. There you are.
Okay, so again, I'll talk about what we are doing or what is available as of now. Synchronization is also available, but when it being used widely, then we'll talk about more about that also. So automatic transfer switch, what is it? So this is a kind of switch what we are using. It is available in the market, but there are few changes what we have done to this automatic transfer switch. Again, they are IP67. We will talk about all those things, IP67. So just talking about this automatic transfer switch, what is it doing? Again, we've set a time 1 second. So automatically when the your main genset goes off, it goes to the other genset. What we have done over here is that we have a backup of automatic also. So what we've done on the right hand side, if you see there is a black box, there is a manual switch also. If by chance 0.001% my automatic changeover doesn't work, in a normal case where I'm only using a ATS without this switch, I can't do anything. I'm stuck on site. So with this, I have a backup that if by chance someday the automatic switch stops working, I can do it on manual also. On the top, what we have put that we are regulating the voltages of both the gensets also, the main genset also, and the hot genset also, the hot backup. Because most of the time, our hot backups are coming one night prior. Sometimes we check the hot backup, sometimes we don't. Sometimes the hot backup only starts during the show time, maybe like 1 hour before. What happens that the parameters of electricity, which are important, which again I'm going to talk in my next slides and all, the basic parameters of electricity, voltage, frequency, if the hot backup genset doesn't have the same, this automatic change won't work. So I have to take care of that my main genset and my automatic, the hot backup genset have to have the same parameters of electricity also. If on the show day, if my main genset goes off, if it is going on the hot backup, then the same frequency and the same voltage is being maintained. Third thing, what we can do is that we can loop these changeovers. You don't need a separate backup for light. You don't need a separate backup for sound. You don't need a separate backup for LED. I can loop these changeovers. So if you have on a normal scenario, we only have on site sound and LED backup. We don't have light backup. The reasons are known and unknown also. So what usually as a power distribution company we do on site, that with that same backup, what you have given us for sound and LED, we create a backup of light also, because for us, your light is also important. We don't want that a genset should fail, a light genset should fail, and the blame should come on the power distribution company. So simple that these automatic changeovers work on these systems. We'll come to the basic parameters of electricity, who are totally unaware that what is electricity. Everybody has heard of voltage, frequency. What is it? In India, from the grid, we are getting single phase supply of 230 volts. There is a range 220 to 240 volts. And then there is a three phase supply, which is 415 volts. These are the basic parameters of electricity which we need to follow. Whatever material we have made or whatever can go wrong is when these parameters of electricity are not achieved on site. So when I say single phase, there are 4 wires to a system. One is the black wire, the red, the yellow, and the blue. Most of you must have seen that. So the black wire is called the neutral wire. Neutral is always earth. We will talk about, in brief about earthing a lot. So neutral is always earth. And then there are the 3 phases of electricity. When I say single phase, so whenever we having a multimeter, we put on the black and the red, or black to the yellow, or black to the blue, we are getting 220 to 240 volts of electricity. That means that our genset or our house power, the voltage is absolutely fine. So these are the basic parameters. Every country works on a different kind of voltage. In America, they are working on a different kind of voltage. That's why many times the international shows are happening, the equipment is coming, we need step-up transformers, because we need to step up the voltage, because they are working on 110 volts and 220 volts on 3 phase. Over here, we are working on 220 volts and 415. So whenever their equipment comes from abroad, we need step-up transformers to step it up to Indian voltages. So that these for each and every equipment have to be adhered. Again, the voltage between your earthing and the phase, when I say it's again, if you have a multimeter on site, if you put on the earthing side, again, that metal body, there is a earth always, and you put on the phase. When I say phase, again, red, yellow, blue, you will get 230 volts. That means that your earthing is proper. The voltage between the neutral and the earth, the black and your earth wire, which is again outside that box, the green color wire, if you check the values, it is 0. In under idle condition, it will go to 0 to 5 volts also. It is acceptable, 0 to 5 volts. Frequency only with gensets, because the above parameters what we have discussed is only for the house power and for the genset. But there is one more thing with the genset run on is the frequency, the cycles of the genset. So the frequency anywhere between 49.5 to 15.5 if you're achieving, that means your electricity is good to go. You can switch on the electricity. If these parameters are not right, you should never switch on the electricity, because something is going to go wrong. If when we say that the voltage is too high or the voltage is too less, what does that mean? That it can cause premature failure of electrical or electronic components. In that case, we are dealing with a lot of technicals. When we say technical, sound, light, LED, they are also working on a voltage. The equipment is made as per Indian or European and all. So their equipment can only take up to 240 volts. If we are going above 240, if the safety devices are there in their equipment, it will automatically shut it off. If not, then what we say that there will be an electric surge and the equipments are gonna burn. So again, we'll come to the next, that voltage. Single phase requires single wire to connect the circuit, whereas three phase requires three wires. Single wire meaning that the neutral is always there with the wires. So voltage 230 volts and 415 volts. Power loss is maximum in single phase. That's why most of our systems, what we are working on, are always three-phase systems. All the technicals also require three-phase power. Ahead, they are always distributing in single phases. Efficiency is higher in three-phase system than in a single-phase system. Okay, I think I have a lot of questions now.
Do you want to take a few of those questions?
Yeah, I'm just like going through those questions only.
All right. You want me to read out a couple of them?
Sure, I'll keep on answering. I'll come back to that one. We'll take questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So several questions on audio, video, questions like LED. Typical LED suppliers are saying that you just need 8 to 10 kVA of generator power.
Yeah.
And why do I need to take a 125 kVA generator?
Yeah.
And why do I need to keep the video guys always separate? And why do I need to keep the audio guys separate and the light guy, when you just now said that all three can be actually put in a single generator?
Yes, they can be. But again, like we are not doing that. Again, there are a lot of factors on site also, because see, your genset, again, if you want to run it for 2 or 3 days, it can run. But ideally for an event, we are always taking safety precautions that let a genset only run for like 12 hours or 16 hours in a day, and then we shut it off. Coming to like kilowatts and like how the power is being decided, I'll be talking about that also, that what are those volts, what are the amps, what are the kilowatts, the basic, again, the units of power. We'll be addressing all those things, I think, like in our coming slides. It is going to get more interesting as we go ahead.
Okay. So there was a question where you were saying step
up transformer.
Yeah. So people were asking whether we need the step up or step down transformer.
So if in abroad, if the equipment is coming, we need step up transformers over here. It's vice versa. If we are taking our equipment to abroad, then they need step down. Over here, if we are taking, then we need step ups. It can be both. In basically, like if you will say that in India, we don't have those, because again, why do we need to go down to 110 volts? So anytime our equipment is coming from abroad, the people are anyways getting that 110 volts for the bigger powers, higher loads. For the smaller powers, there are transformers, there are things which are available. When I'm talking about smaller, that means certain plug points have to be run. It is possible. Again, from the genset side also, we can create 110 volts from the alternator side, because one side is 110 and one side is 220. It will get too confusing. Let's stick to 220 volts and 415 as of now, because the voltages, different countries are differently placed. So I think we should stick to like 220 and 415 volts only right now.
Okay. There are a lot of people probably with whom you have worked and partnered, and they all want to thank you for so many things. That what you said is what they have done in their event. So a lot of people want to thank. I think there are a lot of questions that are being asked, but they're going to be relevant. I know when you move on with your presentation, I know that those those are being answered up ahead. So I think you can just go ahead.
Everything is going to be answered.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. So again, phases of electricity. So now we come to basics. Basics. What are volts? What are watts? And what are amps? Because these things whatever I'm gonna talk ahead, everything is related to volts and amps and watts. So I've just tried to simplify it, that think of volts, watts and amps as water flowing through a hose pipe. Maybe your tap at home. So the pressure which is inside the tap, the water, the pressure is the voltage. Simple. When you open the tap, the amount of water which is flowing is your amps. And the watts are how quickly that energy is being given into it. So again, volts are the pressure which is coming from maybe the genset, a basic voltage which is coming from behind. So that is the pressure. The amps is the flow of electricity, which ultimately the wire is taking. So they are always in amps. That's a unit of power that it is going to be in amps or kilowatts. And watts and kilowatts is the pressure which is released every second from that water. So three very basic things. Everything revolves around volts, watts and amps. Volts only till the water pressure. So firstly, we have to check the pressure of the water, or in that case, electricity. If your volts are fine, then you are good to go with watts and amps. Okay. Earthing, major problem. Everything goes wrong. So whatever equipment we must have made, or any power distribution company must have made or not made, everything comes down to the earthing part of it, because this is the life jacket of your whole electrical system. You can use the best of the cables, you can have the best of the vendors, you can have the best of the equipment, best of the safety devices. Till the time your earthing is not proper, everything goes for a toss. What is earthing doing? Earthing is used to protect you from an electric shock. And earth is essentially an additional wiring system that runs throughout the power system, that ultimately connects into the ground via long GI or copper rods or similar. So what is happening, like we saw the first slide, there was a bucket earth, there was a small wire which was connected to the neutral wire. Neutral is always earth. There are two type of earths which we are doing everywhere, in permanent or in temporary installation with gensets and all. One is the neutral earth, which you have to remember, and the second is the body earth. The neutral, again, the black wire needs to be earth properly. Why? If there is any unwanted currents which are flowing in red phase, yellow phase, or blue phase, which are the three phases of electricity we spoke, that flow in the ground. So you need grounding for that. If you don't have grounding, and if you are touching that equipment, you are the one who's ultimately taking that load, because there is no earthing proper. Why that earthing wire? You see in the picture also, there is a earthing wire with a lug. This earthing wire is transferring that extra load into the ground. Again, when we are using copper rods or maybe galvanized iron rods, so that is just a median. The wire is taking that load and putting it inside the ground so that you don't take that shock. In the first slide which I showed you, there was a bucket for the values. So basically, any equipment, if has to run, let it be technical, sound, light, LED, it need values that the earthing needs to be proper. So again, that is only giving you values. When it is most important to save somebody's life, that bucket earth is not going to save you. That little bit of wire is not going to save you. So imagine, again, we'll come back to the gensets. If you're using a 125 kVA genset, I'll say that in Bombay, you're only getting 60 kilowatts out of it. Let's keep it at 60 kilowatts. If there is an unwanted current in that 60 kilowatts, that could be starting from 1 kilowatt to maybe 30 or 40 kilowatt, depending on the level of fault. So ultimately what is happening, that wire, that earthing wire has to take that load inside the ground. If you're using that patla sa wire and connect to that wire and load, every wire or every equipment has a certain capacity to take a load. So that wire is acting like a median. If you're touching that equipment, you're not getting a shock. There will be a cutoff if you're putting safety devices like ELCBs or RCDs. I'm going to talk about those also. that system will automatically trip. If it will not trip, you will become in between, and then that from the wire, it will go inside the ground. So the neutral has to be earth every time you're doing any genset work, especially. In the case of house power, you don't need to worry about the neutral earth because it is already been earth from the grid. So the only earthing you need to do is the body earth. Now, what is body earth? Body earth could be any body which is having electrical on it. That could be your truss also. That could be my electrical equipment, my electrical panel. That could be your pagoda also, because on a pagoda, you're putting a LED light also, which is touching the metal frame. So what is happening on your truss when you're using a lot of lights, you're using a lot of LED? What if one loose wire or open end wire touches the truss? It becomes electrically charged. So what, again, if you're touching the truss, you get a electric shock. Sometimes it is small, sometimes it is big. I have seen as a power distribution company that the faults are so severe that the person has fallen on the ground. If the earthing is, so when you're doing earthing of any metal structure, again, it is doing the same case that you're touching it, but ultimately when the grounding is being done, it goes directly into the ground. So choosing the right amount of earthing, in that case, it could be your GI spikes or copper spikes, and the right size of wire for the earthing is very, very important for any electrical system, because that is not only to get you the right values, it is for human safety. It is for human safety. Now comes that you don't, most of the problems are you are not getting proper earthing. There is a earth fault which is happening. Why is all those things happening? Firstly, the earth needs to be done properly. Every venue, every location, the soil is different. You need moisture in the soil to get proper values of earth. In a garden where the soil is always nourished, it is always watered, so ultimately it has moisture in the soil. If you go to a rocky, if you go to a rocky area like I'll just example like a MMRDA ground where it is rocky, we need to nourish the soil each and every time. How do we nourish the soil? We water the earth all the time. Secondly, most of you must have heard that you put charcoal and salt. Again, they are good for the soil for creating a moisture to create resistance in the soil. So we are putting charcoal also, we are putting soil also. So it all depends on the area you're doing earthing in. So very important that the earthing of the system has to be done with proper rods, copper or GI galvanized iron rods, and with proper leads fitted with lugs. So these are the lugs what you see in the picture. So these are properly fitted with the wires, and your earthing something looks like this. So this is the earthing what we are also doing on the top picture. This is a very basic what we're doing. So a big 4 or 6 feet GI or copper earthing rod fitted with a 70 square mm single core aluminum lead, what we are using as power distribution company. Why we are using that big lead? Again, you're dealing with loads of a 125 kVA genset, you're dealing with loads of a 250 kVA gensets. If there are unwanted currents, because a genset can produce 120 kilowatts in a case of 250 kVA genset, if there are unwanted currents, this wire is the medium to take it to the ground. If the wire size is less, then how will it take the load to the ground? If it is a very small patla sa wire, then it will burn only. It will burn. It will not take it to the ground. Ultimately, you are the one who will be at the receiving end of that current.
Vaibhav, at this moment, we couldn't see your screen at that moment. So most of us wanted to see that screen. Could you share that screen?
Can you see?
I think it will come back.
Can you see now?
No, share screen yet to come up.
Okay, sorry.
No problem, take your time. There you go. It's like a revision. It's good.
This screen you had already seen, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. So this screen, again, what I wanted to show is that on the top picture, this is a very common earth what we are doing. So if you see, there is a galvanized iron rods what we have made. These are usually 4 feet to 6 feet. There is a connection between the earthing wire and the rod. which is done by a proper lug. Why? Because the connection from the rod to the wire has to be proper. Why we are using a 70 square mm, which I've mentioned, a 70 square mm single core aluminum lead with proper lugs? Because ultimately, if something goes wrong, this wire is taking it to the ground. If you're using a small wire, if it can't take the load of the unwanted current which is flowing in your phases, then ultimately that earthing wire will also burn. And you will be at the receiving end of that shock.
Three quick questions on that one at the earthing part. What are the minimum gauge for an earthing wire? B, is that it's nice to see all this open space. Am I being brash if I say that this is possible in Delhi, it's possible in Jaipur, but what do? We live in Mumbai. Somebody has asked that, behind the Taj, when I park the generator, where do I get a place for earthing? There's also the question of the typical GeoGarden static energy that's comes up because of the turf that's out there. Will that affect our equipment and our power distribution? Can you also talk about, at the same moment, residual current that comes into play when we have these stage automations that we need to plug in?
So basically, coming back to the question that earthing, where it is possible, everywhere earthing is possible. Let it be a Taj. You can do it in the garden, not outside. As the earthing says that it requires earth. Simple logic. If you have to go to a distance of 100 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters also, you need to do that earthing. I have worked practically, I think, like all the venues in Bombay. So the most difficult to work is St. Regis, because your gensets are going on the 8th floor where there is no grounding. What we have done to overcome that, again, we have also made a bucket kind of a thing, but what we have done, we made a 12 feet long pot, so that when there is a earth flowing inside the ground, there has to be some ground to it. Or what we do on top, on the 9th floor only. So the neutral earth has to be proper on that. Vinod, what was the second question? Sorry, I just got confused with the...
Yeah, never mind. So I think I'll just take on this question a little up ahead. What is the right size of that wiring?
Okay, so the wiring size depends. The wiring size depends on the load of the genset. So if you're using a 62.5 kVA, which is giving you a 30 kilowatts of power in a normal case in Bombay or maybe in Delhi, your neutral is always half. Neutral is half, meaning that the 3 phases wire are according to 30 kilowatts, but your neutral can be half, which is 15 kilowatts. So the same wiring size you require for earthing also. So if I am using a 70 square mm, my 70 square mm wire can take up to a load of 40 kilowatts or 50 kilowatts for the earthing. So when we are going to 250 kVA gensets, then we have to do double earth, so that any unwanted current of maybe 100 kilowatts also it's coming, it is going directly to the ground. So the earthing wire is decided by the load what you're putting. We have chosen 70 square mm because I don't want to change my earthing leads every time I'm dealing with a 62.5 or a 125 or a 250. So we made a standard that we're going to use 70 square mm regardless of the fact that a 62.5 or a maybe 30 kilowatt also generator comes on site. So this is the only basis, that it has to be decided according to the load, minus the load, divide the load by half, and the right size of cable you have to use. Every wire has a you can say like a load what a wire can take. So ultimately that decides the whole process.
So 2 things in this area, and that's what the question that you missed out there, is that one was residual current. Okay, this comes into play when we have a stage, a lot of automation going up out there, and what are the factors you need to keep in mind, especially in a place like GeoGarden, where static energy could be floating on the artificial grass. But at the same time, I'm also asking a question.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad. Sorry.
At the same time, there is also a question that comes in, just like Ejaz is asking us this question. There's a question that's coming from Raghav, which says that, there are overhead tension wires that go. So even they go through an amount of power, current that goes around it.
Yeah. So on when the overhead is coming, especially like when the overhead is wiring, like if you're choosing a location where the overhead wiring is crossing, you need to make sure that your trussing or any metal structure is not underneath it. We have faced that problem also, what you just said. It was a NH7 what we were doing in Pune, and suddenly there was an overhead line, and we had done the the whole demarcating of the venue with the metal patra, what you call, and there was earthing which is coming. So again, what we had to do, that at every point we had to dig a small like rod and connect it to that earthing patra so that it became proper. So we have to be very careful that overhead lines are crossing. Underneath it, we don't do any metal, especially the metal should not be there. Otherwise, automatically it will take the current which is flowing on the top.
Okay, and what about in the typical GeoGarden case?
GeoGarden case, the static energy has nothing to do with the earthing system and all. Static energy is like, because in GeoGarden, there is a plastic turf. That is what, because the sunlight is coming, you are exposed, you are sitting. That's why you're getting the static. It has nothing to do with your equipment. Nothing goes wrong with the static energy. There is nothing to do. We do like practically like so many shows in GeoGarden. Static energy is there. But by the end of it, I think the GeoGarden overcomes it by putting like soap water, which again becomes good and you don't feel the static. It is only when the sun and the plastic and when you are there, you get electrically charged. That is what is happening. So nothing happens to the equipment or nothing happens to the whole electrical system or any equipment. I have not faced any problem till now. As of now, not even heard that problem, that the equipment has gone faulty because of the static energy in GeoGarden.
Okay. So I could ask more. There are a lot of questions that keep hitting us. There's still another. I thought I would have finished all the questions, but there are another 45 that have just popped up. This is never going to end. And we have only about 15-20 minutes. So I know I'm going to push you.
Only 15. Then I need to, my email ID can be shared to everybody and I will answer.
Probably you could go with the presentation again. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. So again, we've spoken about that the earthing needs to be proper. We've spoken about volts, amps, loose wire, what can go wrong, dealing with electricity, electrocution, electric shocks, and all that. What needs to be done now? First and foremost, ISI reputed makes good quality cables and equipment. Simple, that any equipment what you are buying has to be from a reputed make. Second comes the IP rated material, sockets and power locks. We will be talking about this also. Safety equipment, MCB, ELCBs, MCCBs, what they are. Again, next slides, IP rated panel enclosure. Digital meters for monitoring basic energy parameters. We've spoken about energy parameters. To be the meter which can tell you don't need to physically hold a multimeter every time to see all those things. Earth fault meters, we've spoken about earthing and all. Earth meters are also available in the market, what you can put on your panels and everything. Over voltage, under voltage meters are also, so that you know beforehand that over voltage is happening or under voltage is happening. Online monitoring of electrical parameters, again the future of you can say like distribution boxes, what we are also trying to achieve now. Heat shrink and termination joints, again we'll talk about all this. So let's go. So again, first and foremost, very important thing for any outdoor electrical equipment which is coming on site has to be IP rated. What does IP mean? It means ingression protection from any, so not allowing any foreign body to enter the electrical enclosure. In this case, there are two what they have. So this is a categorization which is done by the international norms. So every equipment which is made abroad or what we buy off the shelf, certain things are IP65, there are IP67 also. So the first thing, the first to 6 says that 6 number says that it should be dust tight and no ingression of dust. So all your electrical equipment for temporary power distribution have to be IP6 and then the 5. 5 means that it is protected against jets of water, limited ingress permitted. So if your panel is kept outside, it starts drizzling, it starts raining, it can be water resistant, it can't be waterproof. There are certain things which have to be waterproof. Comes the IP67 rating, which says that watertight against the effects of immersion in water between 15 centimeters and 1 meter for 30 minutes. So this IP rating, certain equipment comes in IP65, certain equipments come in IP67. Sometimes your equipment can be IP65 and sometimes IP67. So simple, dust, rodents and water. That is your IP ratings for any power distribution company, electrical equipment, they have to be IP rated. Now comes the cables and sockets. Most of you are aware of. If not, then so these are for the smaller loads. Won't get into a lot of detail. The red socket, just remember, it is for a 3-phase system. The blue socket, it is for a single-phase system. We've spoken so much about earthing, that earthing ka fault hai, ye hai. On the genset side, we have already done the neutral earth. It has reached our main from the wherever we are going on site, we have so many activities going on site. We have registrations, we have food stalls, we have ACs. So what happens as soon as you start using these sockets? First of all, they are reliable. The connections are done in your warehouses, so you don't need to do any connections on site. The wires for this, for a 3-phase system, only come in 5 core. What is 5 core? We've already spoken about black, neutral, red, yellow, blue. There comes the green wire, the earthing wire. As soon as you start using these sockets, your earthing goes from the first point till the end point. You don't need to lay any earthing cable. You're using 5 core cables. So that earthing problem from your main distribution box, when it has already reached from the neutral side, now the socket program will come and it reaches wherever you want. So the wire inside the connections also, if you see L1, L2, L3 is your yellow, blue, and red, and N is your neutral, which is the black wire, and P is your earthing. So these are for the 3-phase supplies. Now comes the single phase. Again, there are 3 wires only which can get joined. So as soon as you start using these sockets, you are bound to buy these kind of cables, which are again 5 core or 3 core. So 3 core cables will only go into this. Now, if you see, these sockets are either IP65 and IP67. So ultimately, the problem of dust and water gets eliminated as soon as you start using these sockets also. So MCB, RCCB, ELCB, you must have heard that MCB hona chahiye, ELCB should be there, RCBO should be there. What does it mean? MCB, simple, it means miniature circuit breaker. It does your 2 major functions only, which is short circuit and the other one is overload. It won't allow, we've already spoken about the problems, what can go wrong. It will save you from 2 main functions, which is overloads happening on site. So that means if anybody tries to use more a wire can take or your genset can take, it will automatically trip the system. So they come in amps. The second is short circuit. What do you mean by short circuit? I'll just give. Anytime your black wire or your red wire or your yellow or blue come in contact with each other, I mean like black, red or yellow comes, there is a short circuit on site. So if there is a short circuit in a normal case scenario, when these safety devices are not placed, it will result in fire. In this case, it will automatically trip the system. That is what tripping means. Sometimes tripping is good on site. For us in live event, it is not good because so much tripping is happening but it is telling you that something wrong is happening with the system and it needs investigating. So MCB only does 2 major functions. Now comes the ELCB, which is called the RCCB also. Both the terms mean the same thing. What does a ELCB does? It does 1 major function, which is your earth fault leakage protection. So again, we've spoken about earthing. So imagine you touching a live box in which the earthing is not there. As soon as you touch, it will automatically trip the system, so you won't get the shock. The whole system which I explained to you, that it will travel from your body to the wire to the ground. If these safety devices are right, it will automatically shut the system there and then only, so you won't even feel anything. So that's why on your main supply, those ELCBs and all are necessary to be there. Now comes the RCBO. RCBO is a combination of MCB and ELCB. It does all the functions. It does your overload also, it does your short circuit also, and it does your earth fault leakage also. So in this, either you can use a RCBO separately because it does all the function, or you can use MCB and ELCBs also, depending on your application. For my live events, I'm using MCB and ELCB both. There is a reason behind it. I will talk about it also. So again, these miniature circuit breakers come in 16 amps, 32 amps, 63 amps. We've already spoken that all the electrical equipment which we have to buy from the market, it will always come in amps because that is the unit of power. So again, these are for the smaller loads. They only come till 63 amps. They come in 125 amps also, but in India, we are not using, so I won't talk about it. These are for the higher loads. So we've spoken about sockets, which only come till 63 amps or 125 amps. And the MCBs also come in till 63 amps. Now come when you're dealing with higher loads. When I say higher loads, I mean, again, for you to easily understand, is sound, light, LED. They ask for particular genset of 125 kVA for their bulk purpose. The distribution they are doing on their own. We are not, as a power distribution company, I'm not doing any distribution from them. All they need is the kilowatts of power they ask me. So what is happening? These power locks, again, the sockets come still 125 amps. When I'm dealing with higher loads, when I mean higher loads, I mean 250 amps, 400 amps, then I start using these power locks. Again, if you read, these power locks are IP67. Why IP67 we are using? Because again, it has to be watertight, because most of the time these cables are outside. Let it be your indoor show, let it be your outdoor show. These cables are always kept outside. So I have to protect them from rain, dust, rodents, or any foreign object entering into this. So if it is raining also, I don't have to use those plastic box and keep on running on those wooden boxes and start covering. Once you start using these power locks, the connection becomes absolutely tight. The red will go into red, the yellow will go into yellow, the blue goes into blue, and the black goes into black. So it becomes a no-brainer on site when you're dealing with live events, when the setup time is less and the workload is more. On the right hand side, that is the MCCB. Again, MCBs are for smaller loads. MCCB is for the bigger load. MCCB does, depending on the MCCB you're using, it does all the three functions what we need: overload, short circuit, and earth fault, depending that you're using microprocessor type and all that. But it can do all the three functions for you. So a safe connection, you remember that first slide, that where there is an open box, what you can do, the first and foremost thing, not getting into a lot of detailed technicality, the cables can be laid, and at last this MCCB device can be placed with proper earthing rods, and it becomes your good power distribution, so that nobody dies, nobody get an electric shock and all. So these are for the higher loads. So again, Vinod, shall we go ahead fast, or you want to take few?
No, I think we should just go on ahead with this, because we have, I think, just about 5-7 minutes. That's it.
Okay. Then I'm about to go. So, okay, these are the solutions as a power distribution company. Again, with power distribution, every power distribution company needs to develop their own products. The sockets are available, the power locks are available, the MCBs are available. But ultimately, that IP boxes and all you have to develop on your own, because you are catering to a different industries. So these are the products which have been developed by us to take care of all the power distribution requirement. So this is the box what we are using to give to bulk power. When I say bulk power, again, I mean sound, light, LED, dedicated genset for dedicated purpose. Over here, if you'll see in the, so this is IP65 because it can't be IP67. Why? Because on the other end, over here, if you see, my power locks is giving the power. On the other end, it is a loose. Inside this, we've placed a MCCB, and on there is a loose, because I'm again dependent on people who are still using power locks or still are using loose cables without any lugs also. So I need to have an open end on the other side. But there is, we can secure it. So it becomes IP65. It doesn't become IP67. Again, MCCBs are there. So it becomes overload, short circuit, and earth fault protection are there. Phase indicating lights on the right side picture, if you'll see on the bottom, there are 3 lights, which tells me that my genset is on and my 3 phases of electricity are absolutely fine. Then we have the multi-function meter. Again, there is a meter on top, which shows me my parameters of electricity, voltage, frequency, load, whatever you want to know. Rather than having that multimeter, everything is shown on site to a layman also, who doesn't understand, but understand that there should be 50 frequency and all that. Then comes the earth fault meters on the back end side. The other picture, if you see, there is a window. We've put earth fault meters also inside this. So anytime an earth fault is coming, we get the values. So the acceptable values for a earth fault is 0 to 30 MA. 30 MA, I mean milliamps. Anything above it, this system will automatically trip. So all the safeties are inside this box, which will tell it, okay, boss, if there is a earth fault, the MCB will trip. Then comes the over voltage, under voltage. Again, it will automatically trip. If there is a neutral break, so in a normal case, if the neutral breaks, there is a 440 volts of electricity, everything will burn on site. What in a worst case scenario, the neutral breaks on site. So if by chance it does, my systems inside will again trip the MCB. Last is online monitoring. What we have tried to achieve with that we have put some SIM cards in it. So I want to monitor the energy now. So I want to know that at each and every hour, what was the voltage, what was the load, so that I can provide power efficiently. How? If I know the load that maybe a sound or a video guy or a light guy is using, and if I'm monitoring it at every hour, I am able to tell to a agency that this was the load, and you don't require a 250 kVA genset. You can do a well in a 125 kVA genset. So that is what we are trying to achieve with online monitoring. If you see, there are behind the power lock, there is dark blue color sleeve. What is it doing? Again, it is protecting it from water, because once we have done the connections from the cable to the power lock, I have to control that little gap which is there. So we put heat shrink sleeves on that. Coming back to the panel, again, we've spoken about sockets, we've spoken about MCBs, we've spoken about MCCBs. So this is the backbone of my electrical system. Again, it is IP65. The cables are coming from the left-hand side. They are catering to this panel. Each and every socket is separately controlled by a MCB or a ELCB. Why? It is easier to find a fault on site. You can't be running ke fault ho gaya. Somebody needs to identify. If everything is separately controlled, your whole show is not suffering. Only one activity is suffering. It is easier to cater to one activity rather than catering to the whole audience or the whole show or the whole activities which are happening. So again, the same features what I have in the main panel, same features I have. One very important feature, once you start using these safeties, that MCCBs, ELCBs, there is a lot of tripping which is happening on site. So how do we overcome that? So over a period of time, what we have done, we've made a switch inside. So during the setup, what do? We switch on all the safeties. Everything is absolutely up and running on 100% safety. We try to eliminate problems on site. Once we have done that, on the show day, we switch off all the safeties. That means I switch off my ELCB, I switch off my over or under voltage, because I know that the genset has been running for a fair period of time. So I switch off the safety only on those short timings, maybe like for 3 or 4 hours. Again, the cables what we are using are flat cables. Again, I do a lot of exhibitions. So all these cables are flat. Blue is my company color. So everything is manufactured especially for us. All the boxes what you see are Quick Power. The dies have been made by us. So again, this socket, this wire, everything. So if you see on the left, the description what I've given is IP65. Again, I'm using a socket. Heat shrink sleeves. You see the black sleeve is heat shrink. They are best quality. These are all rubber cables. Now, why am I using rubber cables? People are using PVC, aluminum, armored cables. Over a period of time, when it is exposed to weather, PVC tends to crack. Rubber doesn't. Rubber is flexible. In heat also, it will expand. Then after that, it will contract. So all the main cables and all the cables what we are using are rubber cables, so that the life shelf of the cables becomes very high. So over here, if I'm using a 5-core cables, 4 square mm. So again, coming back to the chart, a 4 square mm cable can only take a load of 32 amps. So everything remains the same. Over in this picture, the socket size is 32 amps. The wire size is 5-core 4, which can again take a load of 32 amps. And inside this box, also there is a 32 amps MCB. If I break any chain in between, starting from so inside this panel also, there is a 32 amp MCB, the 32 amp socket, 32 amp suitable cable, and 32 amp MCB. If I break any chain, everything what we've spoken about overload. See, let's cut down one thing in between. Okay, I'm not using a 4 square mm cable. I'm using a 2.5 square mm cable. So what happens? The MCB can take a load of 10 kilowatts. The socket can take a load of 10 kilowatts, but the wire can't. So what will happen? The wire will start getting heated up. In the other case, if the socket is less, then the socket can't lay, the socket will. So the whole chain of electricity has to be maintained from the start till the end. Again, different type of socket, bigger cable, depending on the load. So this is can take up to 30 kilowatts and all. These are the plug points. Again, what we are using, again, these are the single phase sockets now. So every socket, what I told you, has a different capacity of taking a load. So over here with our plug point, what we have done, we've placed a MCB rather than a switch. because these plug points are so widely used in events. I can't be running, or my supervision staff can't be running to each and every plug point or whosoever is connecting. So if by chance somebody tries to put more load or tries to put a faulty equipment in my plug point, it will automatically trip. He has to call my supervision staff on site. It is not just a switch which will just blow up. So again, same type of cable, same type of socket, same type of MCB has to be used. So this is what I use for my plug points distribution. So this 3-phase red is coming from my panel. This gets charged and converts it into single phase. Different type of panel, different type of configurations. Everybody does it according to their own need. Inside this, what I've done in the mains, in this red, where the whole main supplies, I've put a ELCB. But again, what will happen, because food stall come, they get old freezer, old equipments and all, it will automatically keep on tripping. How do I overcome that? There is again a changeover on top, a MCB changeover. So during the show day, what we do, my whole supervision staff runs and just does a small changeover. So the only point is you can use all these safety devices and all, but you need to cater to the Indian market also. These are widely used all over the world. There is no problem and all. But in India, we are facing a different type of problem because I am dependent on someone else's equipment also. I don't know what type of equipment he's gonna use. Cable managers, again, we are using 3-channel, 2-channel, 5-channel. Widely used are 3-channel. These are all rubber. Now we have started using PU make. Why? Rubber are heavy. They are, one cable manager is for 15 kilos or something. A PU, the same PU one is 5 kilos, and it can take more load on top of it. So I think everybody is aware of this also. So again, safety always comes first and is never an option. As a company, what we have tried to do, that we use the best quality of materials, and following safe processes. So lastly, I just want to show you some work pictures. So this panel we were using for a flea market show. So you see, I have placed my panel outside. So you have to be confident about the systems what you are using. Otherwise, in a normal case scenario, any organizer will say that he won't allow these panels to be where all the public is walking. But again, it is IP65. All the sockets are protected. There is no loose connection. So we insisted that our panels should be kept outside. Second picture shows a basic PPE, that a reflector jacket and safety shoes should be wear on site. Third picture shows the aesthetics, what from last season we've started, that aesthetics should be give importance, but this can only be done when you're using proper systems and you get time for all this, because most of the time till your last minute you're still doing your work. So while using these socket, the safety methods, first is peace of mind, then you can do a lot of shows on a particular weekend. So again, this is my plug point which is being used. Second is again like Geo Garden, properly cables are being laid. Third is again example of light distro, taking power from my distro, and the panel is taking care of the green rooms behind. Yeah, so this is where we all are present as of now.
You set standards, you met expectations, and I know there are several questions. I would say that we want to continue this, and I think I'm going to take a word from you here live at this moment that you're going to come back and take one more session.
I'm ready to do one more session. I'm definitely up for it.
I think that will make everybody happy here.
Let's do it for sure.
Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
I mean, it has been really exhilarating. You did so much of the minimalistic things that we could know right from grassroots level. Thank you so much. I'm going to quickly move on to Lincia because we are hard pressed on time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Cheers.
Lincia, over to you.
Thank you so much, Vinod. Thank you. And it is said that nearly all men can stand adversity. But if you really want to test a man's character, then give him power. Thank you, Mr. Kapoor, for such a power-packed session on power solutions across the live space, and Vinod for such a wonderful session that you moderated, giving us purpose, giving us direction. Thank you so much. And for all those who have joined us here, thank you for taking the time out and being here. And stay tuned, because we have one more session at 4 o'clock by Manshu Shah. This is the Future Ready leadership series on lessons of experience, where you learn how do you make your business sustainable, yet profitable. So stay tuned. That's going to take place at 4 o'clock. And tomorrow we have a session, a workshop that is the concept of lighting for live events. That's going to take place tomorrow at 2 o'clock by Mr. Sailesh Gopalan. So make sure you're there tomorrow at 2 o'clock, same time, 14th of April. I'd like to leave you with a thought here that tough times don't last. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. And the event fraternity is definitely the tougher lot. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining in, and stay safe, play safe, stay indoors. This is Lincia Rosario signing off. See you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Thank you.